Hello, you are listening to the All Girls School podcast. I'm your host, Victoria Barrett, a graduate from an all-women's college in Virginia. This podcast aims to highlight the diverse experiences and life journeys of graduates from all-women's colleges. Listeners can expect to hear candid conversations about a wide variety of topics. This podcast strives to be in an inclusive space, so some guests may identify themselves as non-binary or trans. I hope you're ready, because class is about to start. Hello and welcome to the All Girls School podcast. My name is Victoria Barrett. I use she, her pronouns. I am your host. Typically, for this podcast, I have a guest with me that I interview for each episode who attended and or graduated from a women's college. The past 2 seasons have been full of Mary Baldwin alum and students who have gone to Mary Baldwin. And we'll kind of dive in a little bit later as to what you can expect from the future of the podcast, because there's exciting news on that front. That being said, as you can see if you're watching, I am by myself, solo, riding solo for this episode, mostly because I think this is probably going to be the last episode for this season. And I did want to squeeze one in, but also scheduling interviews has been a bit of a challenge just because, I am a full-time grad student balancing the Army Reserves and a graduate assistantship and a research project for augmented reality tour. So, I've got a few things going on, and April is like the end of the semester, so I have a lot of things coming due and a lot of events that I'm working. So yeah, I've literally had to schedule in fun time. So sadly, the result of that is that I don't have the time in my schedule to make some more interviews happen for this season. So I think it's better to just kind of take this chance to do another solo episode and kind of focus on, I'm going to chat a little bit about the VWIL Alum Reunion, as well as kind of just chat about, for those of you who are VWIL alum, I'll chat about the VWIL Corps, Mary Baldwin itself, and Stanton, kind of chit-chat a little bit from the weekend. And then I'm going to give you some information as to like when and what you can expect for season 3. So that's just like a little snippet of what you can expect for this episode. You do have me, just me. Sorry about that. But, I'm going to do my best. I'll probably ramble, but here we go. Okay. So the whole point of this episode, I'm not really talking about myself. The end of season 1, if you actually listen reoccurringly, you will know that I did end season 1 similarly with a solo episode, kind of modeled off of with the same questions and topics that I would have asked like my guest, kind of in the sense of like, if I'm asking my guests to share these things about themselves, then it only makes sense for me to, be as vulnerable and open up about my story. So I did that. But for this solo episode, a little different. I'm just going to jump into the VWIL Alum Corps weekend. And so if you're not in VWIL, you're not in Mary Baldwin, this might not be an interesting episode for you. So no hard feelings if you don't want to listen. And if you're just here to figure out what to expect for next season, feel free to skip to towards the end of this episode. But for those of you who, are VWIL or just interested in hearing how the VWIL Alum Corps Reunion weekend went, feel free to continue to listen. So yeah, that's where my recap is going to start. I'm going to kind of go in chronological order. So for those of you who don't know, but I'm sure most of you who are in VWIL know, that this weekend was like the 3rd annual VWIL Alum Corps Reunion weekend, which is combined kind of like with the SMA reunion weekend. So there's like a parade, things like that. And specifically for like the VWIL alum, you can march in the parade. You can do some other like social events that we'll kind of dive into. So yeah, I'm honestly just going to go in chronological order. It was on Friday, April 5th and Saturday, April 6th. FTX did throw some things off. I mean, but that's out of people's controls. Thanks, BMI, for scheduling that when you did. But no, it's cool. It's happened in the past. FTX has always kind of gotten in the way of some of, the parades and things that we used to do when I was there. So they did have to flex a little bit because it turned out being conflicting with FTX weekend. So originally the parade was supposed to be on Saturday, but it had to get moved to Friday. So there was the parade Friday, like a little social event after that for alum. And then Saturday, there was another like social event in the afternoon. But anyway, so I got into Stanton Thursday night. I just drove straight after class. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get there earlier. So kind of like a few days before, I was like, I'm not going to go up Friday. I'm going to go up Thursday night. So yeah, I drove up Thursday night. Still have some grad school stuff. So went to Crucible Coffee, like first thing in the morning, literally stayed there for 6 hours working on an annotated bibliography. But then as time got closer to the parade, I had some of my friends meet up with me, Laurentia, or Tough. Most of you probably know her as Tough, but I'll call her Tia. I'm trying to get better and actually call her Tia. And then Jazz Roll, and then also Jasmine Grayson met up at Crucible. And then, so we all met up at Crucible and then kind of went to the parade from there. And when we got there, got to, got to struggle finding some visitor parking, but we lucked out and got a spot. Like, who even knew where visitor parking was before that? I didn't, honestly. I couldn't have told you where visitor parking was. So yeah, we park up by Cable and then we go find like where everyone's hanging out, the stairs from Cable next to the SAC. And I meet Uliana, who, organizes and leads like the VWIL Alum Corps like newsletter and stuff like that. So that was the first time I met her in person. I've done like the Q&A for her newsletter. So that was really cool, actually like getting to meet her in person. And then there were a couple of 2014 alum, Limerick, Greiser, and then there were some alum from some classes, like 99 earlier classes that I didn't know. So, I mean, not a lot of us, but a decent little turnout, enough to have like a little alum platoon. And it's so funny because it's like we're expected, like part of it is that you march, and all of us were so self-conscious about having to march again. Because like if you aren't in VWIL, it's a very like slow, particular, like when you were in VWIL, it was really instilled in you to like look good. Like we took our marching and our drill and ceremony very seriously. So I think that's probably just why we all felt very self-conscious. And we were like, whoa, we haven't done this in like 10 years or more. So yeah, very, that wanting to look good, march well doesn't go away. It's just like ingrained into our brains. And funny story, the cadets come out with like our VWIL alum guide on and, Roll set herself up. Whoever takes the guide on, like you essentially, once you take it, there's no giving it away. Like Roll made the mistake of grabbing it from the cadet, and therefore Roll was the guide on. She tried to see if anyone else wanted to do it. We were like, nope. So if you are the one that grabs it, you're stuck with it. So I thought that was funny. But Roll never got to be guide on in the course, so she learned something new. Got a new experience. But yeah, for those of you intimidated maybe by the marching part, we literally just marched down and then to the front near where the chairs were for the audience, and then we fell out. So not really that big of a deal. Although going downhill, I forgot what that was like. You really have to slow yourself down for that cadence. But yeah, overall, good. I mean, I feel like we did a good job. Yeah, once we got there, we fell out, got to go sit in the audience. This was a particularly long parade because they were squeezing a lot of things in that they normally would break up into 2 different events. So, for example, the pearls, Howie Rifle Drill, that was all incorporated into the parade, which is not something they would normally do. Normally, that would be a separate event on Friday, but because they had to combine everything, it was a particularly long parade with lots of things going on. One of the really cool things in the parade, though, that also took a long time, but for a very good reason, was like the scholarships and awards section. So, VWIL Alum Corps itself sponsored some scholarships. One was like through, I don't know if any of you have seen like Torch Women's Wear. I forget her last name. I think her first name is Haley, is like a former active duty Air Force officer who created this like these body suits that you can wear instead of like the regular like tan t-shirts and stuff underneath your uniform. So like shapewear, I think it's called. So she has like a whole line of shapewear for every military service, and she worked with the VWIL Alum Corps to create a scholarship. So that was one. And then there was the Work Hard, Play Hard scholarship, which was a scholarship that the VWIL Alum Corps, helped facilitate and create, get the donations for, so that it could be given to a cadet. So that was really cool. And also, like, there were a lot of scholarships from like SMA, things like that. I think ultimately General Jerk ended up telling us that there was like over $40,000 total worth of scholarships, which is really impressive and really necessary, to be honest, because college ain't cheap. And so I'm glad that, there was such a robust number of scholarships and that, they were able to be pretty evenly distributed for the most part, which was nice to see. But yeah, so, the alum were invited to like watch the pass and review. We chatted with some cadets. After a little while, Roll had a big bone to pick with band platoon about not playing Shenandoah. Literally, Roll walked up to the drum major with her phone playing Shenandoah. And so they had a long conversation about why Shenandoah wasn't being played, particularly for that for that parade. So Roll is a Shenandoah stan, so hopefully they'll play Shenandoah next time. But anyway, yeah, so after that, me, Roll, Jazz, and Tia went to, we had to go to my Airbnb so I could check in, which was like close to downtown, but not quite. It was walkable, only half a mile. A cute little like historical place because Jasmine needed to change and I needed to check in. And then we were also hungry, so Roll took one for the team and went to Wright's and got us some chicken tendies and fries because we knew it was going to be like light refreshments, and we're growing girls and we needed that food. So it came in clutch, but it also made us late. Yes, we came to the soiree social thing late. Colonel Patrick had no problem pointing that out, that we were later in typical Colonel Patrick fashion. She was like, it doesn't take that long to check into your Airbnb. And I'm like, you're right. We did snack because we're growing girls. Anyway, also about being late, funny story about that. My phone number has changed several times. And so Limerick, who was there, I was her squad leader and her peer advisor in the Corps when she was a null. And a funny story, because we were late, she was texting me what she thought was my number. It was my number from college, which, has changed twice because I've lived in Alaska, came back to Colorado. Weird rules around porting, and then T-Mobile doesn't exist in Alaska. So when I changed it went to T-Mobile when I moved to Colorado, couldn't port my number a second time. So, it is what it is. My number has changed twice. But moral of that story is Limerick texted my old number asking like where I was, literally sent her location to this person and was like, here, this is like where we're at. And I'm pretty sure she said they like texted back like Nimrod or something like that, because she literally had no clue. She was not texting me. So that's funny. Just a little funny side note. But yeah, like we got to the soiree and it was fun. There were refreshments. There were Belgium craft brewery beer, which I'm a fan, obviously, as someone who has lived in Colorado. So big fan of New Belgium. Some, like different finger foods. And even though the group was small, we like generally chatted, enjoyed each other's company, and it was just a fun time, not only to interact with like people, alum that we knew, but also the alum we didn't know, and Colonel Patrick as well. So it was just, it was honestly just a good time. There was music. And then just to kind of highlight how good of a time it was, I like know that Jazz Roll and Jasmine Grayson like originally were planning to leave at certain times. And I'm pretty sure they left a lot later than they originally planned to. So that just like goes to show how like good of a time it was. I won't talk about all the things we reminisced about. We did talk some shit about Dr. Fox, which I mean is warranted, well deserved. We all know why. Don't have to get into that, but I might get into it a little later. But it's deserved. So not sorry. And then another fun thing was like there was a photo booth set up. So we really had a lot of fun with that. If you follow, you've probably seen some of the photos that came out. It was great, but it was really hard thinking of poses. I'm not going to lie. I'm that stereotypical millennial. It's like I got the peace sign and that's it. That's all I know. What else can I do? It was a lot of pressure sometimes to think of those poses. But yeah, there was music. At one point, it was funny. This Justin Bieber boyfriend came on, like the beat dropped. I remember Tia and I were talking to Leah Greiser, and literally when the beat dropped for that song by Justin Bieber, which Justin Bieber was big, like his young phase was big when we were in college. So literally it was like, as soon as the beat came on, I know if you're watching, you can see this. It was like our heads perked up. I made eye contact with Tia, and then we made eye contact like with Leah, because we were just like so excited that song came on, which makes me think if I can throw out a recommendation for next year, karaoke maybe could be fun. Maybe I'll just show up with a karaoke machine. Why not? That way I can, show off my falsetto, just like Justin Bieber, because I think his songs are fun karaoke songs, in addition to other like boy band songs. Really love those. Those are my go-to. But yeah, so before things wound down, there was like a nice picture that everyone took with their class rings. I could not participate because lost my ring twice. That's another story for another day. Maybe I will, cough up the money and get another one, get a third one. Hopefully third time's the charm. But yeah, it was legitimately like such a good time. I like when I saw the schedule originally, I was like, am I going to stay here till 10:30? I don't know. I go to bed early. I'm a grandma. But no, we stayed the whole time. And then I had to go drop some stuff off at the Airbnb. And we went back out to a local bar called Bricks and met up with Elizabeth Limerick and Leah Greiser there. And let me tell you, Stanton was popping. Like that bar was busy. I said I was going to talk a little bit about Stanton. Like Stanton's popping. It's going through a renaissance. They have, just when you get off the exit alone, like there is a Chipotle, a Cookout, a Chick-fil-A. Like insanity. We used to have to drive 30 minutes for those things. So kind of wild. Stanton, and even like downtown Stanton, there's a lot of like new businesses occupying those buildings, and there's some buildings being refurbished that weren't being used or that sat empty. So, and it does seem like there's a little bit of a younger crowd too living in Stanton, like when I was in Crucible. it was interesting to see like some of the people coming in. So it, Stanton is having a glow up, and it's good for them. But yeah, by the time we knew it, we got home at like 12:30 in the morning. I didn't go to bed till like 1ish. So having a great time. Okay. So fast forward to the next day. I, for whatever reason, still woke up super early. I don't know. I was on a natural high, just getting to see everyone, the interaction. I was feeling good, even though I had like 4 hours of sleep. So took a little walk around Stanton, went to the By and By, which used to be Coffee on the Corner, will always be Coffee in the Corner in our hearts, but is now called By and By. But hey, their coffee's good. Their bagels. I had a Asiago bagel with cream cheese. Delicious. There was a networking event that morning with the Citizen Leader Cadets, which was really cool, actually. It wasn't on campus. It was actually in downtown Stanton. It was at a place called the Stanton Innovation Hub, which apparently, like, Mary Baldwin, I think, is like the main tenant, but it's like this cool multi-purpose like office space, and some different like standalone businesses have offices there, like very collaborative. There's like a cool kitchen space at the bottom. Yeah, very cool. And so we met up with the Citizen Leader Cadets, which those are cadets that are not commissioning. And then there were a handful of cadets that I think belong to different branches like Navy that weren't necessarily required to go to FTX weekend. So there were a few cadets as well that weren't necessarily Citizen Leader Cadets. So it was a good group, like maybe like 15 of them that we got to chat with. It started as like a little mingle round robin. And so, yeah, I just really got to interact with some cadets. And then we went up into a classroom and they got to, it was like a little round robin. So like a timed round robin, almost like speed dating in a way, but with your resume. And so cadets had the chance, we did 3 rounds. So to make sure, and there were only 6 VWIL alum there to network with. So we had to do 3 rounds. So at least every cadet, could get some face time with an alum. And interacting with cadets. I've taught, I'm in a program for higher education and student development. For me, that interaction has always been my favorite thing. Getting to chat with the cadets, just getting to hear what their goals are, hearing how excited they are about the program and how much the program means to them, I think was really important. Just see, like a couple of the ones that I was talking to are like graduating early and like have these big lofty goals that are really impressive. So I'm excited for them and their journeys. Like you've got students like planning to go to med school, get into data analytics, going into law and politics. So yeah, it was really cool chatting with them. And it's funny, whenever I was like, do you have any questions for me? The first thing they would ask is like, oh, can you tell us some stories about like the old days when you were there? Man, the old Corps. I'm like, the old Corps. It hasn't been that long, but no, it's cool. So it's fun to see that like they want that interaction with alum. They want to know what it was like and hear our stories and hear our experience. So like they're excited for that. So we'll come back around to that point later. I'm going in chronological order, then we'll touch on that. Yeah, and then after that event, we had another VWIL Alum Corps Reunion related event at Baja Bean, which we ended up doing a little bit earlier so people could hit the road sooner and get back, especially those with like families. Mad respect to everyone who came with kids. It's a lot of work, so I have the utmost respect for you. I'm just a dog mom. So yeah, that was fun. Again, had good conversation, and it was like a nice little way to kind of close out the like official VWIL alum stuff. And then after that, myself, Tia, and Leah Greiser went to the VWIL office and had a chat with General Jurek, which, I graduated. I was like one of the last classes to graduate with General Bissell as our commandant. So, I don't really know General Jurek that well, nor have I tried to get to know her. Plus, I've also been like all over the place when I was on active duty. So I've never really had like a genuine opportunity. So this was really cool to kind of just sit down and get to know her, get to chat a little bit, talk about VWIL and the Corps, and go in the VWIL office, which, has had like a little facelift inside, redecorated. One thing I thought was really cool was like there is this like really big frame with every classes, and it has every class's ring design in it. So I thought that was like a cool, just a little like token. Like I just thought that was really neat to kind of like highlight those kind of like artifacts from each of our classes. That just saying the word artifact made me feel old. So whoops, but I couldn't think of a better word. But yeah, like it was a really good conversation. We talked about the office and the staff and the Corps and recruiting and classes and things like that. Mary Baldwin going co-ed and the new president, and making sure that the new president understands, the importance of VWIL and, all the work that's going into like keeping VWIL and how it really is like a unique program that no other school has. So really much like making sure that's a priority for the new president, which it seems like it is. So that's always good to hear. And again, we chatted about like the number of scholarships, things like that. A lot of cadets had academic stars. Like that was something Leah Greiser pointed out, that there were a lot of academic stars. So it was really good to see that, academically the cadets are doing really well. And even so, like compared to when I was commissioning, there's a lot of cadets that, it used to kind of be more dominated by Army ROTC. And so it's nice to see like kind of this balance of there's quite a few in Navy ROTC, Air Force ROTC, like in addition to Army. So there's a cool like balance as far as like what branches some of these cadets are participating in. And then one of the other things that we talked about, which was my doing, it was something that I had planned to talk to General Jurek about earlier. So not like super random. It was something that was planned. I am working on a master's in higher education and student development. So my goal is to work at a college or university after this. And so, if the stars align and the universe, and certain doors open where there's an opportunity to work with VWIL and at Mary Baldwin, that's something that I'm very interested in. So that was also something we chatted with, because I am motivated just through this podcast, conversations I've had with Colonel Patrick, to be more involved. Even if that isn't through like an official job, I still know that I want to be more involved as an alum, supporting the Corps and supporting the cadets that are currently in the Corps. So that being said, I do want to kind of transition to talking about alum engagement. So for those who went to Mary Baldwin and or were in VWIL, like I similarly was, very disillusioned and felt disenfranchised when it was announced and we were blindsided that, Mary Baldwin was going to go co-ed. And I completely understand why others felt the same. And that did take like a big blow to Mary Baldwin. And, a lot of alumni did like kind of sever ties and stop donating. And that was a big consequence of that. And again, that was, a product of Dr. Fox, who is the previous president, and not being transparent with alum. And so there's consequences that come with that. But ultimately, we have a new president, Dr. Jeffrey Stein, who spent a lot of his career at Elon University, has a lot of experience, working on, strategic initiatives, which is something Mary Baldwin needs going into the future. Needs someone who's committed to engaging with alumni and looking at, strategies to keep Mary Baldwin relevant and keep students going there. It is co-ed. There's no going back. Like, that decision was made and there is no going back. So regardless of how you feel about the decision, I mean, at the end of the day, Mary Baldwin still exists. And I think Colonel Patrick did a good job of pointing out to me that, yes, it is co-ed, but overwhelmingly, the student population still consists of mainly women. And you still, for those of you who are in VWIL, like, the VWIL program still exists. And like, the goal is for it to continue to exist. But if there is no alum support, then it makes it very challenging for Mary Baldwin, and in particular VWIL. If there's no alum support for VWIL, that makes it challenging for it to continue, right? Because it takes money to run these programs. Like, colleges are essentially businesses. And Mary Baldwin is a private institution, so they don't receive the same like state appropriations that public universities receive. So, the engagement and donations from alum is important, but I understand obviously not everyone can donate money monetarily. And so at least specifically with VWIL, if you can't donate monetarily, whether it be to like those VWIL alum scholarships, the VWIL, whether it's like being able to donate to Mary Baldwin and specifically request that it go to VWIL, because that was an option for the Day of Giving. You could specifically request that your donation go directly to VWIL. So that's an option. But if I get it, like, times, the times are hard, like with inflation, things like that. It's hard. You're pinching pennies and you might not necessarily be able to give financially right now. But there are ways to engage without like a monetary resource, like just getting involved, reaching out, interacting with cadets if possible. So there are ways to interact that way and show support. And I would highly recommend, if you have the opportunity, to come to, the next VWIL Alum Corps Reunion. It was a good time. And then also I think there is like the official like Mary Baldwin reunion, like homecoming type thing now is happening in October. I think that's going to become like the future of like when they're going to do the Mary Baldwin reunions based on like class year and stuff like that. So, I think Dr. Stein, like, if you followed like Mary Baldwin's social media, things like that, you've seen, at least I've seen, a huge amount of effort to be transparent, to, put things out there, to spread the word about certain things. And so there really is a concerted effort to, bring alum back in the fold, and, just being able to donate your time if you can't donate your money. Like I said earlier, just the cadets, the interactions with the cadets, them just wanting to know what it was like. They really do like value and enjoy talking to alum. So you really do bring something to the table, even if it's just, participating in a networking event or some, session or seminar for them. So if you can't donate monetarily, then donating your time is also another option. But I hope more people will continue to donate. I hope that, the scholarships that the VWIL Alum Corps has started can continue to grow, because I think it's important. And I guess I'll kind of close on my reflection about like VWIL Mary Baldwin with this. I understand some people probably are still feel a certain way about it going co-ed, and then there's also like, anyone VWIL specifically, I'm sure it's always like, well, the Corps works differently than it did before. It's not the same, blah, 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 standards and discipline, which fair. Everyone looking back is always like, back in my day, it was like this. Fair. But the point is, it's still there. And we want it to continue to be there. And it cannot continue if it doesn't have the support of alum and it does not have the financial backing. If something happens to Mary Baldwin, then you lose VWIL. So if you want the legacy to continue, it can't continue if it doesn't exist. So whether or not you agree with how much DNC they do, blah, 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 if you don't invest in the Corps and support the Corps, there will be no legacy to talk about. Like it'll just be like, yeah, I used to go to this program at Mary Baldwin, which used to exist. So I would much rather embrace Mary Baldwin where it's at and VWIL, and to make sure that that program that was so important to me continues. And it's not just even about me and the legacy. I think it's about realizing how much, putting myself back in the shoes of these cadets and realizing how much that program means to them, because it still means a lot to them. So that's kind of just my thoughts on it, and trying to re-engage and bring people back who, you know, might be teetering on the edge, or may have even said, screw Mary Baldwin, screw VWIL, or just like have been disheartened and are like, it's not going to be around much longer anyway. Well, I mean, with that attitude, it won't be. But I think there's a lot to be hopeful for. The Day of Giving went really well. I think there's a lot of engagement that is happening, and bridges are being built back for alum. And I hope we continue to build those bridges, because there are still, you know, women in this Corps, young women that believe in the Corps and are excited for the opportunities it has. And it still is unique. You know, I have worked with some Gen Z students, and, you know, not everyone wants to challenge themselves in that way. And so I think for students willing to go through the program, they're, regardless of whether or not you feel like it's the same as it was, you know, in 2010 or 2011 or 2012 or 2013, it's still a program that, you know, is teaching them how to like handle hard better. I stole that from Kara Lawson and Duke, but I mean, that's what it's teaching them. It's teaching them how to handle hard things. Whether or not you think it's as hard as it used to be, that's fine. But they're still challenging themselves in comparison to, for their generation group. Every needs and things shift per generation. And so they're still choosing that program in a time where like a lot of people don't want to challenge themselves. The moral of the story is like, continue to support any way that you can. And if you haven't been supporting, maybe this will change your mind. Maybe this will bring you back around to it. And I hope that you will, and in however shape or form or fashion that you can. And I hope to see more people at the reunion. I know people are busy. Like, I get that. So no worries. Hopefully, I'm hoping people will come to the Mary Baldwin reunion in October, and I'm hoping more people, hopefully next year, the VWIL Alum Reunion won't fall on FTX. But I mean, you know, it is what it is. If it does, that's not something that we can really control. That's, you know, that's all VMI scheduling right there. But yeah, I hope to see more. It was a fun time. Like, I don't know, did I just sound like super negative and like I was giving everyone a lecture? Because that wasn't my intent. My intent was to get people excited and come back. Like, I'm trying to rally everyone back if you know, disengage. So I'm hoping that was the case and that came across. I wasn't trying to be like a Debbie Downer or shame anyone, but I'm just trying to rally the troops, you know, get us to come back around. So yeah, before I talk about season 3, what to expect for the next season, I do want to thank everyone who participated in season 2. So that's Jenna Ritchie Dawson, Emily Carroll, Colonel Retired Melissa Patrick. I can't not say Colonel. Jasmine Grayson, Alessandra Gonzalez Rivera, Maria Las, and Laurentia Moscan, aka Tough. I really appreciate each and every one of you taking time out of your schedules. Some of you live right down the street from me, but also some of you came from far away. You moved your schedules around to make it work and squeeze in those interviews. And some of you let me crash at your house in Germany. By some, I mean Jenna. So really appreciate it, you taking the time to chat with me. And I value every single interview. They're all fun. And so now I'm going to talk about season 3, what to expect. So I've already contacted several people throughout season 2 about scheduling interviews. So for those of you who I have reached out to, know that I do plan to make that happen, but it's definitely going to be more so for season 3 because I just wasn't able to squeeze as many people into season 2 as I would have liked. But also, season 3, we are going to make interviews with guests from other schools that are not Mary Baldwin happen. I know several of you have, put me in contact, given me some points of contacts for some alum for other women's colleges. So thank you. Really appreciate that. And I'm excited to, try and line up some interviews there. There's also an alum that I know that went to Sweetbriar, which I think would be an interesting episode because they did find themselves in a similar situation to where Sweetbriar almost closed. They didn't try to go co-ed, they almost closed. So I think that will be an interesting episode. As well as when I was interviewing Gonzalez Rivera, it was a little bit shorter of an episode, but that's because I was trying to squeeze in that episode before one of my higher education classes. And we also had some technical issues before that, put us in a tighter window. So that episode was a little bit shorter. And then when I logged into class, I had told my professor ahead of time, I was like, in an email, I was like, hey, I have an interview right before, might be a few minutes late. I didn't say what kind of interview. And then he's really, really nice. And he was like, oh, how'd your interview go? I hope you got the job. And I was like, actually, it was an interview for my podcast. And he was like, oh. And then when I told him what it was about, he immediately was like, I know 2 people right off the bat that I can recommend. And one of them, I won't say their name, is literally the co-author of the textbook we use for my class. So that's intimidating. And also this person has published books and research articles specifically about women's colleges. So, and my professor has already reached out to them. They are already excited to be on the podcast whenever I'm ready to reach out and make it happen. So yeah, no pressure. Just gonna interview someone who's literally written textbooks, published books and articles about women's colleges. So hopefully that goes well. But yeah, that is the future for season 3. And I think what the pattern will be for when you can expect seasons are me recording. I will probably be recording season 3 starting in May and continuing over the summer. So I think my goal this time really is keyword goal, is to get as many episodes recorded before actually starting to release episodes. Easier said than done. So I probably will release again, actually start releasing episodes sometime in August. So that's what you can expect. Oh my goodness, how did this episode last so long? Who knew I could talk this long? I should probably work on that, to be honest. A little long-winded, but you know what? Apparently it's a lot easier to talk to a camera than you would think. But yeah, I'm excited for season 3 for new interviews, both continuing with Mary Baldwin guests and other guests from other women's colleges. It's going to be a good time. And I really think I really want to thank everyone who does tune in and does listen, especially on a consistent basis. I appreciate it. I appreciate you listening to this monotone voice, every week that a new episode comes out, and somehow find it like interesting enough to listen to an hour or more of content. So I'm glad that I'm glad that people are enjoying it, because I do get like self-conscious about whether or not people are like, oh, this is a waste of my time, because they are long episodes, but I enjoy them. I enjoy having those chats. So I'm going to continue to make them, even if only 5 people watch or listen. So it's fun for me, and I hope it's fun for some of you too. And I hope that, we can connect in person at a reunion if you're a Mary Baldwin or VWIL alum. So, all right. Well, until next season, I'll be seeing you. Thanks for listening to the All Girls School podcast. But before class is over, please take a moment to subscribe or leave a review on Apple or Spotify podcasts. If you enjoy video content, head over to our YouTube channel at All Girls School Podcast, where you can watch and listen to each episode. You can also follow us on Instagram at All Girls School Podcast, and you can email us questions, stories, and more at theallgirlschoolpodcast@gmail.com. That's it for today. Class is dismissed.